Peter Rodecker from Yellow Room Recording in Portland, Oregon. I'm a producer, arranger, mixing engineer, and multi-instrumentalist. I work with artists to help take their music from where it is to where they want it to be. Sometimes that means mixing and mastering. Sometimes that means playing guitar, mandolin, bass, or ukulele tracks and sending them back online. Sometimes that means programming a full arrangement from the ground up. In this video, I'm going to break down the production and mix session for a song by an artist named Chris Robley. Chris is a great multi-instrumentalist performer. The songs he sends me often have very dense arrangements, and he generally records more than we end up using. So together, with a fair amount of back and forth, we end up doing quite a bit of editing to figure out what the final arrangement will be. That was the case for this one. I also mixed and mastered it. This is Paper Angels. Let's play a bit of this with no effects, compression, or EQ, and then we'll compare that to the final mix. And as it ended up.
There are things that you can't see about yourself. They're like secrets only someone else can tell. The way at night you leave the lights on in the house. The people passing by seeing you can't see out.
So here's the whole song from start to finish, and then we'll see how we got there.
Daddy, all those little dioramas you would make, the suns would never set, the waves would never break. And above the mission, with a bell that never rings, paper angels, paper wings. Traffic on the hill and fog upon the ridge, and golden light upon the bay beneath the bridge. It's got that feeling of a song you'll never sing. Paper angels, paper wings. There are things that you can't see about yourself. They're like secrets only someone else can tell. The way at night you leave the lights on in the house. The people passing by seeing you can't see out. Danny, I could see it in your eyes, nothing changed. For you the spotlight in a cage were both the same. So there you dangle like a puppet on some string. Yeah. Paper angels, paper wings. You learn to turn your hungry eyes up to the sky. Well, heaven help us, you assume that you could fly. Of course you couldn't, but it never lost its sting. Yeah. Paper angels, paper wings. The quiet current hums in almost everyone. Some barely hear it, but they feel it when it's gone. There's a place where sea and bay are both the same. traffic on the hill and fog upon the ridge, and golden light upon the bay beneath the bridge. River turns to ocean, winter turns to spring, yeah. Paper angels, paper wings. So this is sunrise and all that it'll bring. Paper angels, paper wings. Paper angels, paper wings. Paper angels, paper wings.
All right, let's start with the vocals. I did do some tuning on here. So what you're going to hear first will be the untuned version with no treatment.
Daddy, all those little dioramas you would make, the suns would never set, the waves would never break.
So this is the tuned, treated version. I'm going to let the whole verse play because for the last line, the first layer of harmony comes in.
Daddy, all those little dioramas you would make, the suns would never set, the waves would never break. And above the mission, with a bell that never rings, paper angels, paper wings.
The first verse initially had acoustic guitar, kicks, claps, bass, piano, and the synth pads, all of which sounded good together.
Daddy, all those little dioramas you would make, suns would never set, the waves would never break.
But a lot of what makes this arrangement work is bringing things in and dropping them out, so I wanted to have somewhere to go after the first verse. So I cut the claps, the bass, and the synths so I could bring those in on the second verse. Our basic elements become the kick, the piano, and these two acoustic guitars. Here they are, untreated. Really well recorded. I just did a little EQ, a little compression, and added some tape emulation. And then we also have the piano, which sounded good when I got it. I just did a little bit to clean it up. And then after what I did to it, nothing drastic, just cleared out some space. Then we also have this kick. This is how it came to me. But that was a little clickier than I was looking for, so I darkened it up a little bit and added some sub to it. So now let's hear how that flows from the first verse into the second verse.
And above the mission, with a bell that never rings, paper angels, paper wings. There's traffic on the hill and fog upon the ridge, and golden light upon the bay beneath the bridge.
So there's a lot going on here. We'll start with the percussion, which at this point is the kick that was already in, and then these claps that drop in on the second verse. When they came in, they were a little bit bright and noisy. So I took some of the top end off, put some distortion on to warm them up a little bit, and put a gate on. Then we've got this syncopated bass guitar. It doesn't have a ton of low end on it because there's a synth bass that comes in on the third verse underneath it. So this is what it sounded like when I got it. Then with a little treatment. Then we've got these two sort of 80s sounding synths that add in some motion, some texture, and some width. And they pop up again on the third verse. Plus we've got this pump organ that leads us into the second verse. Then the Rhodes comes in as well, which spatially balances the pump organ. And with the pump organ. And along with the synths, it has this really dreamy foundation that has a lot of push and pull to it. We also have these Juno keyboard stabs. For this one, I just took a little bit off the bottom and added some warm saturation. Then one of my favorite things about this song is this string arrangement that was written, recorded, and performed by Rob Flax. Every time I get tracks from him, they always sound great. I barely have to do anything, and they sit perfectly in the mix. For most of the song, they function as another pad that adds a little harmonic motion, and then later on, they're featured on the bridge. Then as we get to this first chorus, here's the only thing that I added to the arrangement. 2 tambourines, one doing 16ths and one hitting on the 2 and the 4 where the snare normally would. I felt like it needed some high frequency energy to set this section apart from the others. So here's that transition from the verse to the chorus without the tambourine.
There are things that you can't see about you.
And then with it.
There are things that you can't see about you.
I think it makes a pretty big difference. Then we also bring in this sort of ghostly chorus synth. And this electric piano. And also on the chorus, we add a second layer of harmony, which is there for the second chorus as well. Here's the middle harmony.
There are things that you can't see about yourself.
And the high harmony.
There are things that you can't see about yourself.
Then this is the untuned version of all of them.
There are things that you can't see about yourself. They're like secrets only someone else can tell.
Those sound great, but we wanted a little bit more of a polished sound, so I did a bit of tuning.
There are things that you can't see about yourself. They're like secrets only someone else can tell.
And here's the first chorus for context.
There are things that you can't see about yourself. They're like secrets only someone else can tell. The way at night you leave the lights on in
Then for the third verse, pretty much everything that was in on the second verse stays, and then we layer a few more things in. The first is this super low synth bass. And that's made up of two different signals that are an octave apart. And then the one that's an octave up. And we also have this crazy steel drum sound. The violins are in as well, but I cut part of them out and just left a fill in the middle.
For you, the spotlight in a cage, we're both the same. So there you dangle like a puppet on some string. Yeah. Paper angels, paper wings.
I knew I wanted something drastic to happen on the bridge, but the mix was already so dense that it didn't make sense to add anything else in. So I pulled the kick and pulled the sub bass out so it feels like the bottom falls out, and then brought the strings forward. So that transition sounds like this.
Paper angels, paper wings.
As the bridge goes on, we brought back in those lower elements, so the mix starts to fill out and get big again so that we can then drop it down for the fourth verse. Almost everything, including the claps, the bass, and the acoustic guitars, goes away. Then the guitars come back staggered, then everything else drops on the last chorus.
Once you learn to turn your hungry eyes up to the sky, well, heaven help us, you assume that you could fly. Of course you couldn't, but it never lost its sting. Yeah. Paper angels, paper wings. The quiet current hums in almost everyone. Some barely hear it, but they feel it when it's gone. There's a place where sea and bay are both the same. I knew that feeling, friend, but I never knew its name.
For the start of the last verse, which also functions as the outro, we dropped out the percussion. It then comes back partway through along with this crazy distorted keyboard part that builds all the way to the end of the song.
There's traffic on the hill and fog upon the ridge, and golden light upon the bay beneath the bridge. River turns to ocean, winter turns to spring. Yeah. Paper angels, paper wings. So this is sunrise, all that it brings. Paper angels, paper wings. Paper angels, paper wings. Paper angels, paper wings.
And that's Paper Angels by Chris Robley. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in working together or you'd like to know more, find me at yellowroomrecording.com.